Welcome back. It is week 8. We are officially halfway through the fantasy football season. Today, matchups that matter, going through everything you guys need to know to set your fantasy football lineup. Every matchup, every important fantasy relevant player discussed in today's video on the morning of the Trey Savage Masterclass in World Series Game 1. Let's get right into it. Going into this week, we do have 6 teams on bye, which means no Los Angeles Rams, Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, Arizona Cardinals, Las Vegas Raiders, or Seattle Seahawks. So this is bye-mageddon. I believe this is the worst bye week of any week this entire season, and we have a number of injuries and, of course, a lot of other things going on. So we might have to dig a little bit deeper. I'll make sure to give you guys some deeper names per game that we go through in case you do need to throw somebody in off of the waiver wire that can go into your starting lineup. So game breakdown, no London game, no international game this week. So we have 7 1 p.m. games, 3 4 p.m. games, 1 Sunday Night Football, and thankfully only 1 Monday Night Football game. Let's kick it off with Atlanta Falcons hosting the Miami Dolphins. The Falcons are 7.5-point home favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under. Atlanta looking like a nice pick here with the third best DVOA advantage versus the Dolphins' poorest defense. And, of course, the Dolphins, a terrible offense against a really good defense. These numbers this week are out of 26 because we do have 6 teams on bye here. So Michael Penix, I do think, is in play. If you guys need a streaming quarterback, I know there's a lot of great ones on bye this week, plus some injuries like Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix, not a terrible streaming option. We'll go over streamers later in the video. Bijan Robinson, welcome to the 40 burger that he's about to put up because the Miami Dolphins are horrendous as a run defense, and I'll get to that in the stat of the day. Devon Achane is going to be in your lineup, of course. Drake London is expected to see shadow coverage from Rasul Douglas, who has been shadowing for the Miami Dolphins against number 1 receivers. So maybe a slight downgrade to Drake London, slight upgrade to Darnell Mooney, assuming he plays. Jalen Waddle versus the Atlanta Falcons secondary, a very difficult matchup. They have been, across the board really good, not just the top corner, A.J. Terrell. They've been very good across the board. Kyle Pitts, a great start at tight end this week as well because the Dolphins are just generally a terrible defense. And Kyle Pitts running the second most routes of any tight end in fantasy. Only Trey McBride has run more routes percentage-wise of his team. Atlanta's defense and Atlanta's kicker both in play, given the 7.5-point favorite and the 26 implied total. The stat of the game here is the Miami Dolphins run defense gives up the most explosive runs in the league at nearly 10% of the time, giving up a run of 10, 15 plus yards. That is by far the worst in football. Bijan might legitimately go for 50 fantasy points in this game. And if you're looking for a deeper name to start, I do think you can flex Tyler Algier in this one. Could get out of hand. Algier, even on 10 plus touches against this defense, could find the end zone. He has scored a touchdown in every single game that the Falcons have won this year. And I also think that you can throw Darnell Mooney out there, no problem. If you need a deeper name, I think Malik Washington's not a terrible option as well because Darren Waller is now on IR. So those, drag route targets and whatnot are up for grabs. Chicago Bears taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Now it looks like Lamar Jackson will be back for this game, and Vegas is kind of respecting that. 6.5-point home favorites for the Ravens. 28 implied points for Baltimore here. 49.5 is the over-under. The under catching a little bit of the steam. Both offenses have top 15 advantages according to the opposing defense. Lamar Jackson is practicing, limited yesterday, limited on Wednesday. We'll see what happens today on Friday, but I would imagine he'll be upgraded to full, and even if he's limited, I still think there's a good chance he plays. So if Lamar Jackson is out there, you are absolutely starting him. You're starting Derrick Henry, you're starting Zay Flowers. I do think given the injuries and the buys and all that kind of stuff, you could throw Mark Andrews out there as a streaming tight end on Baltimore's side. And of course, on the Bears side of things, DeAndre Swift, who has been a top 6 running back in back-to-back weeks, he is out there against one of the worst defenses in the league, specifically against the run, although they are getting reinforcements back. Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, and so on. Caleb Williams, definitely a viable streaming quarterback this week as well, given all the buys and the injuries that we do have. Rome Odunze, definitely an every week starter. DJ Moore, given the matchup, is a good start this week too. If you need some deeper names here, Colston Loveland could be his breakout game. Chicago is probably going to be without Cole Kmet. He's dealing with a back injury, not currently practicing right now. We saw Loveland get upgraded routes-wise to like 64% of the routes. So if you want to get ahead of your waiver wire, definitely go and pick him up and stash him if you're dealing with, like, let's say you have like a Dallas Goedert or a Travis Kelce or somebody who's good but not excellent. I think that Colston Loveland's a good stash for teams like that. And if you need some deeper names in this game, I think Rashad Bateman is very much in play, given that Baltimore has Lamar Jackson back. And I do think you could even play Isaiah Likely if you really, really had to at tight end or in the flex, but I don't think you'd have to dig that deep. Stat of the game here, the Bears defense is allowing the most yards before contact per attempt as a defense, meaning they are allowing their offensive line on the opposition to get push and get yards before contact. The Ravens offense produces the most yards before contact of any O-line, any team in the NFL. Even despite how bad they struggled before their bye without Lamar Jackson, they were getting a lot of push here. So, translation, you better buy Derrick Henry now. Because if you don't buy Derrick Henry now, you are probably going to pay Derrick Henry price tags. And as I've talked about in numerous trade targets videos, the Ravens have a very easy schedule. All of the Ravens are great buy low candidates. This is your last chance to send out offers for Zay Flowers, who is a top 15 receiver in my rest of season rankings, for Lamar Jackson, who is my QB2 in my rest of season rankings, and for Derrick Henry, who is a top 10 running back in my rest of season rankings. I have a feeling that on Monday, we're doing the skyrocketing video. We are going to be talking about these Baltimore Ravens coming off of a big week, and specifically Derrick Henry as well. Moving into the Carolina Panthers hosting the Buffalo Bills. Does look like it'll be Andy Dalton starting for Carolina, and the Bills are 7.5-point road favorites here. Buffalo coming off of 2 tough losses before the bye to the Patriots, and then again to the Falcons. They are implied for 27 points, 46.5-point over-under. Pretty good game environment. Pace of play is top 3 on the slate. Both offenses have DVOA advantages in the top 12 as well. So a lot of good fantasy relevant options that you could throw out there in this game. Josh Allen is going to be in your starting lineup. James Cook is going to be in your starting lineup, of course, for the Buffalo side of things. Teteroa McMillan is expected to see shadow coverage from Christian Benford, so keep that in mind. Maybe a little bit of a downgrade for him. The top 5 EPA per rushing offense of the Carolina Panthers, you can fire up both players as flex options, Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, because this is a very easy matchup for them. If you need a flex option, I think Khalil Shakir is a really good one, and I also think Xavier Legette, who was a big waiver ad for a lot of people this week, is also a good one, because Jalen Coker not playing his full complement of snaps. We saw Legette set career highs across the board. Yardage, targets, receptions, receiving grade, all of his yards per route run, all of his metrics last week were really good. So if you do need a flex option, I think Legette is a good deep name. Same with Keon Coleman, who was probably dropped in a lot of leagues. You could definitely throw him out there, and definitely start Dalton Kincaid. He is coming off of his oblique injury. It sounds like he is going to be good to go. He was limited participation in practice so far throughout this week, but we'll see what happens on Friday. If he is out, you could even probably throw Dawson Knox out there, but Dalton Kincaid, before his injury in those first 4 or 5 games of the season, had been producing as a top 3 fantasy tight end with over 13 points per game on the back of big plays, touchdowns, lots of yardage, that kind of thing. So definitely put Dalton Kincaid out there if you can. And then Buffalo's defense and kicker both in play, but just keep in mind they are on the road. That can get a little bit wonky for it, even though they're 7.5-point favorites. Stat of the game here: the lowest defensive pressure rate in football belongs to the Carolina Panthers. They are a good run defense. They cannot rush the passer. Under 30% of the time, they are pressuring opposing quarterbacks, which is 2 to 3% lower than any other team in the league. Translation: RIP to you if you face Josh Allen, because with a clean pocket, with time, he is 5th highest graded quarterback in the league with a kept clean pocket. And last year, he was by far the number 1 graded quarterback with a kept clean pocket. So if you are facing Josh Allen, good luck to you. If you have Josh Allen, congrats on your big performance, because I do expect him to have a big game here. New York Jets taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. 6.5-point favorites here for the Cincinnati Bengals at home. The Joe Flacco renaissance here is taking place. 44.5-point over-under. The under catching a lot of the steam. I suspect that is due to the Jets not having Tyrod Taylor practicing right now. Justin Fields was benched, but maybe he'll start. We actually don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be for the Jets at this very moment. As of now, I'm projecting it to be Tyrod Taylor, but it could change. If Tyrod can't go, then maybe they have to go back to Justin Fields. The pace of play is pretty high in this one, but other than that, not a super exciting game environment. Breece Hall is going to be in your lineup. Chase Brown's going to be in your lineup. Both of those guys are top 24 running back plays for me. Of course, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, given the pass volume that we've seen from this Cincinnati offense since Joe Flacco took the reins, have to be in your lineup. And also worth noting, no practice on Thursday or Wednesday for Sauce Gardner. He is currently in the concussion protocol. He could, of course, clear it before the game, but it does look like he is probably going to be out this week. If he is in, he will shadow Jamar Chase, but if he is out, that is great news for everybody involved. Make sure you sit all the Jets wide receivers because Garrett Wilson is not practicing with his knee injury. I do not expect him to play in this game environment. And Josh Reynolds, even though he had 9 targets last week, is not somebody that I want to start unless you are absolutely desperate. Mason Taylor did not practice on Thursday. He got downgraded, but it does sound like, according to Ian Rappaport, that he will play. So keep that in mind. He is a decent streaming tight end, as is Noah Fant, man. Noah Fant, with no Mike Gesicki out there, he was playing a lot of routes. He was getting some targets, making some big plays. So if you're desperate at tight end, it is National Tight Ends Day on Sunday. So make sure you have some tight ends in your lineup this week. I personally am starting 2 of them, Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, both in the Flock League. Stream Cincinnati's defense if you need one, and kicker. This is weakness on weakness for the stat of the game because the Jets offense, 29th in EPA per play. The Bengals defense, 29th in EPA per play allowed. Same for the other side of the ball because this is the 6th best matchup in rushing success rate allowed, the New York Jets. But Chase Brown and the Bengals have struggled to run the football this season, although in the last 2 games, he's looked a lot better. So I do think this could be one of your last opportunities to maybe buy low on Chase Brown before he really gets going, because we saw last week lots of signs of life, and that could continue going forward. Moving into the 49ers, taking on the Houston Texans, traveling to Houston, where they are 1.5-point underdogs. Houston is getting a little bit of, grace from the Vegas odds makers here, even though they've been pretty garbage as a team, pretty unwatchable as a team. They are favored slightly in this one. I don't expect this to be a very fantasy relevant game environment. So if you do not have to play players in this game, I probably would not. Sit both quarterbacks. I wouldn't mess with CJ Stroud. The 49ers are playing tough on defense. Although if you really needed a quarterback, I think you could play him. He will be a part of the streamers territory, just given that we have 6 teams on bye and some injuries. But you should have better options out there than CJ Stroud. Definitely don't play Mac Jones. It looks like Purdy will be out for this game. It sounds like he's progressing, but it doesn't sound like language that would indicate he's going to play in this game. Christian McCaffrey, of course, is going to be in your lineup because he's Christian McCaffrey. Woody Marks, given the usage uptick that we saw from him coming out of the bye, it was a lot more similar to that first game when we all got excited about Woody Marks, dropped a bunch of fab on him. We did see that usage uptick yet again, so definitely a good start this week. Nico Collins, if he plays, because he is currently in the concussion protocol, might not clear it in time. I would say there's probably about a 30-40% chance that he does play. If he does play, he's definitely out there for you. If he does not play, and you had to dig deeper, I suppose you could play Jaden Higgins, the 2nd-round pick from Iowa State, who would play on the outside in Nico Collins' place, or you could play Jalen Knoll, who Christian Kirk, also not practicing, would play the slot if Christian Kirk is out for this game. So just monitor the Texans receivers. If you need a deep waiver ad, I do think that Houston's receiver core is a good one to go after. It looks like Ricky Pearsall will be out. Brandon Ayuk, we got some positive news from him, so keep him stashed if you guys do have him stashed right now. It looks like by week 10, week 11, he could be back on the field based on everything they're saying. Jawan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne are in play for you if you need a flex option against Houston's secondary. George Kittle, after a 0-burger last week, hopefully he can bounce back. And Dalton Schultz, massive performance against the Seahawks. It was a really, really easy matchup for him. The Seahawks are really bad against tight ends, but the 49ers are not much better, especially now without Fred Warner out there. I do think Dalton Schultz, National Tight Ends Day, is a really good option if you need a deeper name. Like, I would rather play Dalton Schultz personally than any of the other Texans receivers, because I do think he'll be the biggest beneficiary of Nico Collins not being out there, of Christian Kirk not being out there potentially. If you need a defense, Houston's a good one. Kicker on the Houston Texans, Kaimi Fairbairn, also a good one. Stat of the game here, per PFF, the Texans pass rush is number 1 in football with an 89.4 pass rush grade and a 41.5% pressure rate, which is top 5 in football. Mac Jones, not mobile, still kind of dealing with a knee injury. He has decent blocking. They're 13th in pressure rate allowed, but maybe the 49ers leave George Kittle in to block a little bit more, which is what I suspect happened on Sunday Night Football against the Falcons, who also have a really good defense. So George Kittle, maybe not the biggest performance for him. And like I said, this game environment just overall not an exciting one. Same with this one. New England Patriots taking on the Cleveland Browns here. The Patriots are 7-point home favorites. The 40.5-point over-under leaves a lot to be desired. You could start the every week starters here, which is Quinshon Judkins. Of course, he has been on a tear recently, going for 3 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins. Drake May also been playing at a super, super high level. You can start him. Ramondre Stevenson probably in your lineup, given the touches that he is seeing, even though it is a terrible matchup for both starting running backs in this game. If you need a flex option, Stephon Diggs is definitely in play. Kayshon Boutte definitely in play, but keep in mind in the stat of the game that the Browns are a pretty strong defense. And then Jerry Jeudy, again, if you need a flex option, I wouldn't blame you for starting him because he is getting volume. He's just been really terrible this year. And then Harold Fannin, just keep an eye on David Njoku's health right now. David Njoku was dealing with that injury last week. If you guys remember, he missed the game. And he is currently limited in practice right now. So I would say there's a chance that he plays, but if he is indeed out for this game, then you probably have another great starting spot for Harold Fannin. But even if Njoku plays, I think you could throw Harold Fannin out there. Hunter Henry, half-decent streamer as well. New England's defense and kicker both in play. Stat of the game is Drake May has posted a perfect 99.9 passing grade on deep passes in the NFL this year, which is crazy considering that was a big bugaboo of his coming out of college, and that is a scary sight for the NFL. It is a whopping 77.8% completion percentage, and like I said, a perfect passing grade. It's strength on strength here, though, because the Browns are sixth best at preventing explosive plays, whereas the Patriots are creating them with guys like Kayshon Boutte down the field. So we'll see how that matchup plays out. Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Giants. The Eagles 7.5-point home favorites here. The over is catching a nice amount of the steam. This is a game environment which I'm pretty excited to watch. I do think even with a 44-point over-under, this game could have some fireworks in it. Jalen Hurts is going to be in your lineup. A.J. Brown's going to be in your lineup. He is seeing a shadow coverage versus Paulson Adebo. Devontae Smith, of course, going to be in your lineup. He has the 24th easiest defense, especially when you factor in that Adebo is probably going to be on A.J. Brown most of the time. Saquon Barkley, I think this is the game, fellas. I know Saquon has been very, very disappointing for a lot of you guys. This is a revenge game at home. I know he didn't do well in the first game against the Giants, but that one was in New York. This one is in Philadelphia. I do believe that this is the game that we see finally Saquon, who has not had a rush over 20 yards all season, break one for a touchdown, 40, 50-plus yard rush in this game. So Saquon Barkley, if you guys are worried about him, you should be because he hasn't been good. But he is, in my opinion, going to get on track in this game. Jackson Dart, Cam Skadaboo, both good streamers. Skadaboo obviously an every week starter, but Jackson Dart a good streamer in this one. Again, keep in mind, road game, road divisional game. Jackson Dart might have a little bit of a down performance, but I thought he was going to not be good against the Broncos last week in Denver, and he ended up surprising me. Wan'Dale Robinson can be in your lineup. Dallas Goedert, given how he's played, is definitely in your lineup. And I do think, even despite New York winning this game last time, the Philadelphia defense and kicker are the way to go about it on the special teams front. Stat of the game here is the Giants play the second most man-heavy team in football. They run the most man coverage other than Denver in football here. Success rate versus man coverage per reception perception data in 2024. Number 1 in the NFL at beating man coverage, A.J. Brown. Number 3 in the NFL at beating man coverage, Devontae Smith. So I do think we are going to see yet another uncorking of the Philadelphia Eagles passing game on the New York Giants in this game, and I'm not scared about Paulson Adebo shadowing A.J. Brown. I do think that Hurts, A.J. Brown, Smitty, and Saquon should be able to take care of business in this one. Moving into the 4 p.m. window, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, taking on the most wretched franchise in the history of football, the New Orleans Saints, taking on Tampa Bay here. The Buccaneers are 4-point road favorites, over under a 46.5. Pace of play the highest on the slate. Tampa Bay's DVOA a massive advantage over the Saints defense here. Of course, I do not like the Saints. I do not like the state of Louisiana either because I think, a bunch of nincompoops live there. But Baker Mayfield going to be in your lineup. Rashad White obviously going to be in your lineup. Emeka Egbuka going to be in your lineup. I do think if you guys need some deeper plays this week, some of the best out there are Tez Johnson at wide receiver if you need a flex option, Cade Otton if you need a tight end option out there, and of course, Alvin Kamara is going to probably be in your lineup for New Orleans, as is Chris Olave, and I do think Rashid Shaheed also a very good start in this game. If you guys need a defense, I think Tampa Bay's is in play, but just keep in mind they are on the road. New Orleans, it's a divisional game. You never know what could happen, and Chase McLaughlin definitely going to be in your lineup given how well he's played and how many long field goals he's made. Stat of the game, Bucks are 28th in explosive pass plays allowed. So if you guys are looking for a Hail Mary play, a guy that you have no idea if he's going to be good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, Rashid Shaheed is a great one to throw into your lineup because given how we play defense, sometimes there's coverage busts and that kind of thing. Wouldn't shock me if Rashid Shaheed got loose for a big play in this one if you're in need of a bye week fill-in. I think this game has a lot of great options. Like I said, Tez Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, Cade Otton, even Jawan Johnson if you needed a tight end option is a decent one in this game. So moving into the Denver Broncos taking on the Dallas Cowboys. This is one of the best game environments on the entire slate. And again, if you need bye week options, this is the game to attack. Denver has a 50.5 point over under implied for 27 points, over catching some steam, pace of play second highest on the slate. Both teams a top 8 DVOA advantage versus the opposing defense. You are starting everybody that is an every week starter here. That means both quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Bo Nix, both of my top 10. Both running backs, Javonte Williams and J.K. Dobbins, inside my top 12. CeeDee Lamb is expected to see shadow coverage from Pat Surtain, but George Pickens, the primary outside receiver. CeeDee Lamb gets moved around the formation a little bit. So whether he's on Lamb or he's on Pickens, it's a downgrade overall to the Cowboys wide receivers. Courtland Sutton, the easiest matchup of any wide receiver on the entire slate. And like I said, even with George Pickens facing off against Pat Surtain a little bit less than CeeDee Lamb, it is going to be tough when he is matched up against him. Jake Ferguson, a great start. Evan Ingram, a good start if you guys need a tight end option. Both kickers also in play. If you need some deeper options in this game, I probably would not start like a Flournoy or a Tolbert or anything like that. I would actually go to the Broncos side of things. If you need a flex, throw Evan Ingram out there. If you need a flex, throw Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims out there. I think they are definitely in play there. And if you need to really dig deep at running back, I don't think RJ Harvey is a terrible option. Stat of the game, Broncos are top 5 in single high safety looks this season and number 1 in man coverage rate. There is only one Patrick Surtain on this team, though. So every one of Lamb or Pickens are going to be working against Patrick Surtain. Whoever is not on that specific play is probably going to be freed up. And the Cowboys are 5th in fantasy points per dropback versus single high look. So the type of defense that Denver plays does bode well for Dallas, because not only do they have one guy that can take away the number 1 corner, they have another guy who can beat one-on-one coverage. So Tennessee Titans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. In this game, the Colts are 14-point home favorites. The Titans laying a lot of wood here. The Colts implied for over 30 points. That is the highest on the slate. The over-under is 47. The over catching some steam. And Indianapolis's DVOA, the number 1 DVOA advantage versus the Titans defense, and vice versa. The worst DVOA disadvantage on the slate is the Titans offense versus the Colts defense. Now, Daniel Jones in your lineup. Jonathan Taylor in your lineup. Michael Pittman in your lineup, Tyler Ward in your lineup, even deeper names. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, you want to start those guys, but be my guest. There's bye weeks, there's injuries. I think you absolutely could throw those guys out there. Looks like Downs is going to clear the protocol. He is back at practice in full. Tony Pollard, if you need a running back, you can play him, but the Colts have been really stingy against the run. We just saw them shut down Kamani Vidal and the Chargers, and we saw what Kamani Vidal looked like on Thursday night, and that actually was an accomplishment for the Colts defense. This is a defense that you would rather pass the football against. They've been giving it up to explosive plays, especially since Charvarius Ward has been out. So whether Calvin Ridley plays or Calvin Ridley doesn't play, you can definitely throw Alec Iomanor out there if you needed to. If you need to stream a defense, Indianapolis's defense is one of the best on the week, and their kicker also in play. The stat of the game, the 28th ranked Tennessee Titans defense in EPA per play is down its top 2 defensive players. L'Jarius Sneed now on IR, and Jeffrey Simmons, they're easily their best player up front, is not practicing right now with a hamstring injury on Wednesday or Thursday. It looks like he is probably going to be out. So translation, start everybody on Indianapolis. Again, if you have to start Downs and Pierce, I don't blame you. Of course, if you got to play Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, or Tyler Warren, seek cover. It is going to be a rough game for you if you are facing those guys. Moving into Sunday Night Football, Green Bay Packers taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers reunited once again for the Aaron Rodgers revenge game. Pittsburgh is at home in this game, but Green Bay is favored by 3. Interesting spread there. I do think I kind of like the Steelers to cover that. Green Bay is implied for 24.25 points. The over-under of 45.5. The over the most steam of any game in this slate here. So expected to be fireworks to some degree on this game environment. Jordan Love is an every week starter right now, especially given how he's playing. I know it hasn't been flashy in the box score, but this is a game environment I expect him to put up points. Aaron Rodgers, same thing. He's playing pretty well right now, and Green Bay is susceptible on defense to the passing game. Josh Jacobs out there for you. Jalen Warren out there for you. Those guys are every week starters at running back right now. DK Metcalf, a great start this week as well. Green Bay secondary definitely susceptible to the big play. If you guys need some flex options, Romeo Doubs a good one. Matthew Golden a good one. I would not mess with Christian Watson, who looks like he will be making his season debut after coming off of an ACL tear this week. But Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden are great plays, specifically Doubs of the two of them. Tucker Kraft, a great tight end play. If you needed a tight end in this game, I do think that Jonnu Smith is in play. I know Arthur Smith loves his tight ends, and he'll probably give Freiermuth touches and Darnell Washington touches, but Jonnu Smith is the starter of this team, so I definitely think you can throw him out there. And don't be afraid to get cute in this game if you really have to. Like, I don't think if you're desperate at running back, I don't think it's terrible to throw Kenneth Gainwell out there. He could get some targets. If you're desperate at tight end, I don't think it's terrible to throw Jonnu or Freiermuth out there. If you're desperate at wide receiver, I don't think it's terrible to throw Calvin Austin out there or something like that. This is the only matchup of the slate that features two top 8 EPA per play offenses, and both defenses are allowing top 8 most offensive plays to the opposing offense. So it's good on fast-paced in this one. So this could be a lot of fantasy production. I do kind of agree with the sharps here that I like the over of 45.5, and it could be a sneaky shootout spot. So don't discount the deeper plays in this game. Monday Night Football, finally, we just have one Monday Night Football game. Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Washington Commanders, 12.5-point home favorites in Arrowhead for Kansas City. Again, Marcus Mariota is expected to start this game. That's why the big spread. We do expect to see Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin out there. Both of them are back at practice. The over-under 46.5 in this game. Kansas City with the major DVOA advantage, though. Patrick Mahomes is going to be in your lineup. Rashee Rice, of course, going to be in your lineup. Travis Kelce in your lineup. Xavier Worthy in your lineup. And a player I just traded in the Flock League, Isaiah Pacheco. Positive news, positive buzz, positive snap share increases the last couple of weeks. You can definitely throw him out there as a flex. This is a good matchup for him. And then on the Washington side, assuming Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin do in fact play, of course, you can start them as top 36 wide receivers, top 24 probably for Deebo, top 36 or so for Terry McLaurin, just because he's coming off a multi-week injury. If you need a running back, Bill is in play, but just keep in mind he's, sharing a backfield still with Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez, and make sure to play Kansas City's defense in this game because Marcus Mariota is definitely susceptible to turnovers. And of course, you could throw Harrison Butker out there as well. Mikey Samerstill, the slot cornerback of the Washington Commanders, has allowed the second most slot yards in the NFL of any cornerback, and he has a 53.2 PFF grade, 88th graded corner per PFF. The Chiefs have Rashee Rice playing in the slot, who assumed his full role basically on half the routes that he normally gets. So I would imagine that Rashee Rice really establishes himself in prime time here and goes for a big time performance. So RIP to you guys if you play against Rashee Rice, but good on you if you do have Rashee Rice on your roster. So moving into the streamers, we're going to go through tight ends, quarterbacks, defenses, kickers. Streaming tight ends that I like this week. Again, we got to get a little bit gross here because we do have 6 teams on bye. We do have some injuries. If you need streaming tight ends, not only am I good playing these guys in my tight end slot, but I'm also good playing these guys in my flexes because given the buys and the injuries that we have, there's going to be a lot of people out there looking for fill-in starters. For example, I'm starting 2 of these guys in my home league. Harold Fannin against the Patriots. Again, assuming David Njoku plays, he's more of a streamer than an every week starter, but if David Njoku's out again, then he would be upgraded to a top 10 option. Evan Ingram versus the Cowboys, really good option, really easy defense to exploit. I am also starting, in addition to Harold Fannin, Dalton Schultz in my home league in my flex because I do think he's a really good play this week with Nico Collins potentially not playing, Christian Kirk potentially not playing, and the way that he showed he can earn targets last week. I think Dalton Schultz is a great play this week. Mark Andrews, like I said, Lamar Jackson is back. I think you could throw him out there and hope for a touchdown. Cade Otton, given that Mike Evans is out and Chris Godwin is out and Bucky Irving is out, it is just Tez Johnson, Emeka Egbuka, and Cade Otton out there. I think Cade is a really good play as well. Moving into the streaming quarterbacks, again, we got a lot of great ones on bye, plus Jaden Daniels out with an injury, so a lot of people are going to be using these guys. Aaron Rodgers, the premier cream of the crop streaming quarterback this week, bar none, in my opinion. If you can get him, he is the best widely available, meaning under 70% rostered quarterback that you can get. Joe Flacco, a pretty good option against the Jets this week too. Like I said, Michael Penix against the Dolphins. It could be a trap spot for Michael Penix because Bijan could just do everything, but Bijan does a lot through the air. So it's possible Penix gets points for that. CJ Stroud, again, I don't really want to start him, but if you had to, I definitely could. And then Marcus Mariota, again, I really don't want to start him. This is just how gross the quarterback position is this week. Like Mariota's like my QB 20 or 21 because of how many teams we have on bye and because of how many injuries we have. So I would say you should not start Marcus Mariota, but he does run the football and he has been a fantasy relevant quarterback anytime he has started. Moving into the defenses, top 5 defenses: Atlanta versus the Miami Dolphins, Indianapolis versus the Tennessee Titans, New England versus the Cleveland Browns, Kansas City versus the Washington Commanders, Buffalo at the Carolina Panthers. The number 6 defense locked into my rankings was the Chargers last night, which obviously was a good call. Denver versus the Dallas Cowboys, my number 7. Tampa Bay versus the New Orleans Saints on the road, my number 8. Cincinnati versus the Jets, my number 9. Philadelphia versus the Giants, my number 10. And then I give you a bonus one because I had one on Thursday. Houston versus San Francisco is my number 11. My top 5 kickers, top 10 kickers overall, you guys can see them on the screen there. Brandon Aubrey, Cameron Dicker, who of course played last night, locked in as my number 2. Chris Boswell versus the Packers, my number 3. Chase McLaughlin, my number 4. Eddie Pinheiro, assuming he plays, my number 5. Harrison Butker versus Washington, my number 6. Will Lutz versus the Cowboys, my number 7. Tyler Loop versus the Bears, my number 8. And Michael Badgley and Kaimi Fairbairn to close it out. I'll give you one more bonus one. I do also like Evan McPherson, my number 11, because I did have Cameron Dicker lock into my top 10. So that is the matchups that matter slate. Of course, go Blue Jays tonight, and fuck the Saints to all of my Buccaneers fans out there. And I enjoy to see your angriness in the comments if you are mad about Louisiana comments from this video. So leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Again, this video takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, so I really appreciate if we can get it to 500 likes if we can. And again, if you've been watching these videos, if you've gotten some advice from us over the season, over the off season, really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel because it is totally free to do so. If you guys do want some bonus content, head on down to flockfantasy.com. That is linked in the description and the pinned comment. If you're looking for the My Teams feature, that'll help you make trades. The trade calculator that is customizable to your league settings, that will help you make trades. That'll help you make moves. The trade finder, so you can gauge the prices of some of the assets around fantasy football land. You can definitely check that. And of course, if you want all of our rankings, week 8 rankings, rest of season rankings, dynasty rankings, superflex, one quarterback, tight end premium, etc., you can definitely check that out. All of those undergoing a major update. As you guys are watching this, we are updating our trade value chart as well. So if you're looking to make some dynasty trades, definitely tune in to next week. We'll probably tackle some dynasty trade targets at the midseason point, because this is a really crucial time. A lot of people know what they are, know if they're contending, know if they're rebuilding, so on and so forth. So we might break that up into contending, rebuild, buys, and that kind of thing. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. But with that being said, peace out. I'll talk to you soon.